Hey, what's up? So today I have my Krenko commander deck, and we're gonna go over some of the choices I made, some of my thoughts about the commander, and the philosophy behind playing Krenko. And we're gonna talk about some of the cards, some of the strategies in the deck. But first of all, this is on Mox Field. I like it because you can put tags, so you can sort things by like card draw, haste enabler, lands, ramp, removal, stuff like that, instead of just the normal types that they give you on other websites. So we use that to our advantage here in this deck tech. So if you don't know, Krenko Mob Boss is a mono red commander, 2 red red for a 3/3. It's a goblin, so obviously it's a goblin creature type deck, goblin tribal deck, if you will. You tap it, create X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins you control. So basically, you tap this, and if Krenko is your only goblin, then you make another goblin, and then you basically double your goblins every turn. But the most important thing about this deck, I think, well, there's two important things. The first one is that you need to give Krenko haste, or have Krenko the ability to activate its abilities when it comes out. And second, you need to have a lot of tokens on the battlefield when you play Krenko. So, Haste Enablers are the most important part, I think, of the deck. Because think about this. If Krenko doesn't have haste, he's just a 4-mana 3/3. He gets removed easily by basically anything in the game. And you're going to have to recast him. So giving him haste allows him to activate that ability right away. And that's good because now you just basically used him. You don't want to have to wait a whole turn or use him where he's susceptible to removal and hate. So some examples of haste enablers: Lightning Greave and Swiftfoot Boots. I really like these because they also give hexproof with Swiftfoot Boots or Shroud of Lightning Greaves. So they give the creature haste and also protection from any sort of direct damage spell or any sort of destruction effect, so that's really good. Just having the extra, I mean, really, you play these for the haste, but the added benefit of the hexproof and the shroud is good enough too. So you play these. You also play 1,000-Year Elixir, although it doesn't technically give haste. It says you may activate abilities of creatures you control as those creatures had haste. So when you play Krenko after this, you can activate Krenko as though it had haste, and then you can make your goblins. And then this also lets you pay 1 and tap it to untap Krenko, so you can activate it twice the turn it comes out, which is pretty powerful with some of the other things in our deck. Activating Krenko twice every single turn is pretty darn good. Some other things, they give us haste, hammer, perforos, creatures you control haste. So this also gives the tokens that Krenko produces haste, which is important if we want to kill our opponents with those tokens. And also late game, we can pay 3, sacrifice a land, and make a 3/3 golem. I'm playing this deck that really doesn't come up that much, but it's a little nice added benefit of that card. Battle Mage's Bracers. You put it on your Krenko. It is 2 mana to equip, so a little bit more expensive than the Boots or the Greaves, but it says whatever ability of equipped creature is activated. If it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 1 and copy it. So if you have extra mana, you can equip this to Krenko, pay the 1 mana to basically activate the ability of Krenko twice. It's very similar to 1,000-Year Elixir. It basically is the same thing, but this one is in red and it's equipment, so it's a little bit worse, but it's still a very strong card and a very good haste enabler. We also have 2 goblins that are haste enablers. These also give all of our goblins haste. So Goblin Chieftain, other goblin creatures you control get +1/+1 half haste. Gives Krenko haste and adds a goblin to Krenko's goblin count. And then Goblin War Chief, goblin spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Really important for reducing the cost of things in our deck, and also giving Krenko haste is very good as well. So anyways, these are haste enablers. Remember, when we want to have these out, there's seven of them in our deck. We want to have one of these out so that Krenko can use its ability to turn it comes into play, so it doesn't get removed by our opponents. But when we get Krenko's ability off, we want to have some goblins on the field to make it so it's not only making 1 goblin. So it's making like 5 or 6 goblins. So how do we do that? Well, the best way is Goblin Tokens. And we have like a good 8 of them which is really cool. There's lots of ways to make tokens and goblins. Beetleback Chief, 4 mana, 2/2. It comes in, makes 2 goblins. So this adds 3 to your goblin count for Krenko. Goblin Instigator comes in, makes a 1/1, so adds 2. Goblin Rabble Master, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you make a 1/1. So every single turn, this is making a 1/1. And also, this is really strong if you're attacking with lots of goblins. This can become a threat that can kill an opponent by itself, which is something your opponents need to look out for, and something that you can use to its advantage. So this is not only a token maker, but a threat as well. Same with Legion War Boss. It makes a 1/1 at the beginning of combat that attacks. So it makes a token every turn, but also this grows the tokens. So it's very similar to Rabble Master, and I like it a lot because making the tokens bigger makes them more into threats. Krenko 10th Street Kingpin, the other Krenko, not as good. When it attacks, you put a counter on it and then create a number of 1/1s equal to Krenko's power. So if you have any Goblin Lords, this becomes bigger, of course, obviously. But every time you attack, you're going to get more Goblin tokens, and that's going to up the amount for Big Krenko. Mog War Marshal, when it enters or dies, you make a 1/1. It's basically the same as Goblin Instigator, but it triggers twice. And of course, you can just pay its Echo to keep it around, too. Pashlik Mons. You can pay 4 mana, sacrifice a goblin to make 2 goblins, which is a little expensive, but if you have the leftover mana, turning 1 goblin into 2 goblins is very good, especially since its own ability lets you deal 2 damage to any target when you sacrifice those goblins. And then Siege Gang Commander, when it enters, you make 3 goblins, and then you can pay 2, sacrifice a goblin to deal 2 damage to any target. You can remove any sort of creatures, remove Draenei Magistrates, any sort of mana dorks you can remove with this. So it's a pretty powerful effect, but just making 3 goblins when it comes into play helps your Krenko count a lot. So all these cards make more goblins. They're goblins that make more goblins, which means you play these, and then you play Krenko, and you make a lot of goblins, right? So you make a lot of goblins of your Krenko, and then what? What do your goblins do? Well, obviously they attack, but you can also kill your opponent without attacking. So we're going to go into this next section. It's called Tokens Win. Basically, the tokens that you create from Krenko can win the game without even attacking. There's many ways they can do that. The most obvious way is Purphoros, God of the Forge, and Impact Trimmers. Purphoros, God of the Forge, whenever another creature enters, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So every time you're activating Krenko and you're making like 4 or 5 goblins, this is doing like 10 damage to each opponent, which is crazy. Same with Impact Trimmers. Whenever a goblin enters from Krenko, however many goblins enter, that's how many damage you're doing to each opponent, which is insane. That's just that's just like an insane amount of just value from the Krenkos. And especially if you can get multiple triggers of Krenko and get multiple activations of Purphoros or multiple activations of Impact Trimmers, that's just crazy. But not only do we have those, we have ways that we can sacrifice the goblins to deal 1 damage to target creature or player with Goblin Bombardment. So we're making those tokens from Krenko, we're probably attacking with them, and then we're sacrificing them to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So we can sacrifice them to just ping our opponent out, or we can just kill any sort of creatures that get in our way. We also have stuff like Burn at the Stake, which has an additional cost. You tap any number of untapped creatures you control, and it deals damage to the target creature or player equal to 3 times the number of creatures tapped this way. So let's say you make like 7 goblins. Say you have 7 goblins from Krenko, or I don't know. That's a pretty reasonable amount, actually. 7 from Krenko. You tap all 7 of them, deal 21 damage to a target creature or player. That's pretty good. Of course, you can do it for more than that because you're probably going to make way more than 7 tokens. So as many tokens as you have, you just go, boom, deal 40 to someone's face with this card easily. It's very, very strong. It does require you to tap them, but so that means they can't attack, but it's still pretty darn good. I like this card a lot. Then we have cards like Foundry Street Denizen and Goblin Pile Driver. Same as like Rabble Master, where they get bigger when you're attacking more goblins. Foundry Street Denizen, whenever a red creature enters, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So you play all of your tokens. You activate Krenko, you make tons of more tokens, and now Foundry Street Denizens like a 10-1 or something. It's not the best, but it still can do some pretty good damage to someone who doesn't have any blockers. Goblin Pile Driver gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking goblins. So you make goblins, you attack with them, and this will become a huge threat just by itself. Yeah, that's really good. And like Rabble Master does the same thing. The Rabble Master also makes tokens too, which is insane. The Rabble Master is such a good card. You have Skirk Fire Marshal, which is similar to Burn at the Stake. You could tap 5 untapped goblins to deal 10 damage to each creature and each player. So you're going to kill off all your goblins, but you're going to deal 10 damage to each player and each creature, which basically wipes the board and takes out at least a quarter of everyone's life total. What's really cool about this card is it says Pro Red, so it doesn't do any damage to itself. And also what you can do is you can tap 5 goblins, put that trigger on the stack, and then tap 5 goblins in response to the trigger to keep doing 10 damage to each creature and each player. Of course, it says each player, so you will do the damage to yourself, but you're playing goblins. Yeah, you're going to probably have more life total than your opponents anyways, hopefully, because you're going to be doing a lot of damage to them before they do damage to you. Next, we have Voracious Dragon. Devour 1. As this comes into play, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature comes into play with that many counters on it. So you sacrifice all your goblin tokens for a big creature, right? Not quite, because it says when it comes into play, it deals damage to target creature or player equal to twice the number of goblins it devoured. So if you make tons of Krenko tokens, you sacrifice like 7 or 8 of them, this comes into play, deal 16 damage to someone's face. That's really cool. And it also comes into play with that many +1/+1 token, or +1/+1 counters on it, which is really fun. I like this card a lot. It's really sweet. It is 5 mana though, but 5 mana. So you play Krenko on turn 4. If you have a Haste Enabler, you activate it, make like 4 or 5 goblins. Play this on turn 5. After you activated Krenko again, sacrifice like 10 goblins to it. Deal 20 to someone's face. Like that's pretty darn good. And then we have cards like Massive Raid, which deals damage to target creature, play equal number of creatures you control, and Goblin Warstrike, which is specifically goblins, to deal just damage to someone's face equal to the number of goblins you control. So if you have enough goblins out to kill someone, you can just cast this. Goblin Warstrike, sorcery, Massive Raid is an instant, which Massive Raid being an instant is really cool. You can just randomly kill someone with it. I think that's all the cards here. Oh, Bulgart Shenanigans is a combo of Goblin Bombardment and Skirk Prospector, because you can sacrifice the goblins to have this deal extra damage to target player, but it also protects you against board wipes, because if someone board wipes you and you have like 20 goblins out, you're just going to deal 20 damage to their face. So you say, hey, don't board wipe me unless you want to take 20 damage. Pretty fair, right? It's pretty fair. So this is like really good board wipe protection, and it works well with Goblin Bombardment and Skirk Prospector. So you can just win with your goblins right away without even attacking. Things like Perforos, things like Impact Trimmers, things like Fire Marshal and Burn at the Stake, and just wipe your opponent out. Same with like Voracious Dragon and Massive Raid. But what if you don't have those? Or what if you want to win by attacking? There's so many ways you could win by attacking. And you win by attacking by buffing the power and toughness of your goblins. So Battlecry Goblin is also a Haste Enabler too. 2 mana, they get +1/+0 in haste until end of turn, so you make those goblins. Now you pay 2 mana into it. Now they're all 2/1 attackers, pretty darn good. Goblin Bushwhacker, you pay 2 mana, all of your creatures get +1/+0 in haste. So also, if you have lots of Goblin tokens, you play this, and now they're actually into real threats. Goblin King, all goblins gain Mountain Walking +1/+1. This one's really cool, because they get +1/+1, obviously, so now they're 2/2s at least. But also, if an opponent has a mountain, they can't be blocked, which is really sweet. Goblin Trashmaster, another lord, but also allows you to sacrifice a goblin to destroy artifacts if any artifact is keeping you from killing your opponent, or if any artifact is just giving your opponent too much value, you can just remove it. Goblin War Driver. When it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So this attacks with all of your Krenko tokens. They get the benefit. Hobgoblin, also a Goblin Lord, but you can activate this after you activate Krenko to deal damage equal to the number of the goblins you made to any target. So let's say Krenko makes 6 goblins, you can activate this to deal 6 damage to any target. And now you have those new goblins enter as 2/2s, and you just dealt 6 damage to someone. Pretty darn good. Ogre Battle Driver is really sweet. It's not a goblin, but when another creature enters, the creature gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. So this is really good. After you activate, so you activate Krenko, you make all your tokens, and Ogre Battle Driver will give all of them +2/+0 and haste, which is really sweet. I love that. So you can just win out of nowhere with this. Quest for the Goblin Lord. Whenever a goblin enters, so you're going to have at least 5 goblins enter, probably just with 1 Krenko activation, and this gives all your creatures +2/+0, so makes it so your goblins actually attack what each will be at least 3 with this, which is pretty fast clock. Reckless Bushwhacker, same thing as Goblin Bushwhacker, except it's a little bit more expensive, but it's pretty good. Runeveld Hornmaster gives all goblins +1/+1, but it has the ability, whenever another goblin control dies, you get to basically exile the top card of your library, and if it's a goblin, you may cast that card. So it gives you pseudo card draw and an easier way to kill your opponent, which I like. Shared Animosity. This is just, you play this, you activate Krenko, you can just easily kill someone because it gives a creature +1/+0 until the turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. All of your attacking creatures are going to be goblins, so each goblin's going to get like +15/+0 or some crazy amount like that. It's gonna be an insane card. And Throne of the God Pharaoh, after you've attacked at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal number of tapped creatures you control. Each opponent. So let's say you were only able to kill 1 opponent. Well, now all the other 3 or the other 2 are dead. So, or however many opponents you have, they're gonna lose lots of life from this card, which is pretty cool. I like Throne of the God Pharaoh, but it requires you to tap your creatures or attack with them. It's a nice synergy. It's a nice synergy of Burn at the Stake, because this requires you to tap any number of creatures. Well, they're tapped, but they didn't attack. But you had Burn at the Stake, so it works really well. Burn at the Stake. So you use Burn at the Stake, kill or deal a lot of damage to someone, then Throne of the God Pharaoh will drain the rest of the map. So that's a really nice synergy. I like that a lot. So we also have Torbran, and this says red source you control would deal damage to opponent. It deals that much damage +2. So this will really accelerate Perthros, impact trimmers, and also when your goblins are attacking, instead of doing 1, they're doing 1+2 damage. So that's really sweet as well. So you have lots of ways to make it so where your tokens that you're creating from Krenko are actually either winning the game by themselves entering, or being buffed enough to where they're actual threats. Anyways, that's basically the gist of the deck. We could talk about the card draw in the deck if you want. We have Conspicuous Snoop's a really good card. Goblin Ringleader, stuff like Sensation Gorger. Skull Clamp is a must in this deck, of course, because you just add it to a creature and you draw 2 cards. But I think you can look for that stuff on your own. We have also a lot of ramp in this deck. Soul Ring, Ruby Medallion works really well because every red spell costs 1 less to cast now. Things like Battle Hymn, Brightstone Ritual add tons of mana for us. Something like Cursed Mirror is really interesting because it adds a red mana, but also it can enter as a copy of any creature. So you can have it enter as a copy of Krenko and get the additional Krenko ability, or have it enter as a copy of an opponent's creature. So yeah, that's really sweet. Anyways, this deck, I like this deck a lot. I've been playing it in paper, and it's really sweet. If you want to go over all the cards in this deck, like, I'm not going to talk about the utility lands in this video, but if you want to look at the utility lands, the deck list is in the description below. If you have any thoughts about what could be in this deck, let me know. And yeah, I hope you like this video, and I'll see you again some other time. Bye bye.